interesting time on Health Watch, the only health program that educates, enlightens, and informs you on health issues concerning men, women, and children. For the past 2 years, we've been through a lot, from the pandemic to a very tough economy. I would just say another recession, but this time a harder one. And let me just give an illustration. So the 12.5 kg gas used to be 3.5, but now it is 8.5, or in some places 9,000 naira. Some people have left their jobs, some people have left their businesses to try other businesses. It's not just working out, it's been very, very hard. And this could set people into stress, depression, and of course affect their mental health. Now on today's edition, our focus is on mental health. Plus, we have a feature on stress management, and I'm sure you know that stress is also linked to your mental health, so it's a bumper package on today's edition. My name is Nkem Okibe. We'll go on a short commercial break. When we return, you'll meet my guest. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, the program is Health Watch, and our focus today is on mental health. With us today on set is a consultant psychiatrist in the person of Dr. Kehinde Shodimu. You're welcome to Health Watch.
Thank you so much. I'm glad and happy to be here.
Yes, we've been through a lot as a country, as a people, as individuals, and I can tell you that a lot of things have happened, and it's been affecting people. People have been taking some kind of decisions, and which somehow affects their mental health. But the question is, what is mental health?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, because people are not even aware that there is something called mental health. So mental health in itself is a state of emotional, psychological, and our social well-being. Literally what that means is it's about the way we think, the way we feel, the way we relate to others. Our mental health also determines what you do with the next person concerning your job and basically your day-to-day activities. And then contrary to what we might think, it actually spans right from childhood to the adult. And to buttress this point that mental health is very important, the World Health Organization defined health in itself as a state of physical, mental, and social well-being, not just absence of disease and infirmity, meaning that everything together, if it's fine, then you can say that you have good health.
What are the factors that could affect our mental health? Because you just said that it spans through from childhood to adulthood. So it's very possible that some people have had some mental health challenge as a child, and they take it up, grows up with them as an adult, and they're still dealing with it. So what are the factors that could be responsible for a person's mental health?
Okay, I like a question. I'll first answer the factors responsible. But what you just said is a question in itself, so we'll make reference to it at the end. So what are the factors? We don't have any known cause particularly, or we say if this happens, then you will have mental health. No, we don't have that equal to yet. However, we have something we call etiological factors, and it can be broken down into predisposing, precipitating, and perpetrating. I broke it down so that we'll understand more, and then we can relate it to life scenarios. For instance, part of the predisposing factor is the family history of somebody in the family that has mental health issues. Also, it does not mean that because somebody in the family has a mental health issue is equal to that the children or the people in that family would or must have a psychiatric issue. Then we move on to childhood. To another factor is childhood adversity. Childhood adversity is a very serious issue. I know a lot of organizations are coming up about child. Some of us might wonder why is all the noise? What is this for? But childhood adversity has been shown as one of the biggest risk factors that can actually predispose one later in life to having a mental health issue. You should ask me what are the other things. What is comprising of that child adversity? It includes the sexual abuse, the neglect, the emotional abuse. The emotional one, people don't relate to that, but the emotional one, what comes under that is having time for your children, showing empathy when you're supposed to show empathy, and then physical abuse. The physical abuse, I'm sure if you ask 100 people, literally, if there was a phone now, they'll say, I have never abused my child physically. But we do not know that sometimes when you cross the line, when you're punishing, it actually goes into some kind of physical abuse. And then migration, that's also part of the predisposing factors. Predisposing meaning that there's a higher likelihood to have a mental health issue. Then I will now go to the precipitating. Precipitating doesn't come in itself. Let me give you an example, then you can relate. For instance, lack of unemployment. Sorry, not lack. Unemployment.
Like what's happening right now, but the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs.
They've lost their jobs. So you will say that it is not everybody that has lost their job that will come down with. However, somebody that is already predisposed to having a mental health disorder might have a mental health issue presently now. I can also put in another example. Two people go for a job interview and they tell them that the company says, we are sorry, we cannot take you. So the first one goes home and thinks that, okay, maybe my certificates are not enough, maybe I need to do more, and then he enrolls himself into something. But this other person thinks that I've gotten to the end, I think, or he has gotten to the end, I can't take it anymore, and then he commits suicide. The mistake we make is sometimes we believe that at that point, when did the mental health issue start? But because of the predisposing factor, he was already on the verge of something before. So that causes that. Then other ones are the domestic violence, parental separation. Most of the time, the high rate of divorce now. Sometimes some parents go into this, they don't, although one cannot blame, and I'm not putting any blame on anybody, but this is just to increase awareness that when you are doing that, think of the children. It is a major factor
the effect
for
it
them.
will have on the children.
Please, it is. Sometimes children, the way children think is they think negatively. Anything that happens, they will rather look at the horrible side. Maybe it's my fault, maybe they don't love me, maybe I caused it. Instead of them looking at, another example is you are supposed to go for a PTA, for instance, and you couldn't go. So the child at school waiting for you will just think that mommy does not love me. Okay, what I did 2 weeks ago, that is why she's
especially when
me.
it happens repeatedly.
But you might really be held up somewhere. Maybe you had a last meeting or your car broke down, blah blah. But if it was in an adult scenario, you cumulate immediately. I'll think that maybe she was caught up somewhere. That's a negative and positive thing I'm trying to explain. Another one before we leave that one is substance abuse, trauma. Then to go into the question, I remembered, you didn't remember.
I didn't forget. I wanted you to get to a point where I bring the question in again.
Oh, okay. All right. So on that one, it comes with the prenatal factors, meaning while in utero, maybe the mother was exposed to some kind of viral infection, or she was exposed to one thing or the other, or at birth the child suffered some kind of bad trauma or asphyxia, like we know, that is the child did not breathe properly, immediately it came out. So that could predispose that child, or most of the time, in that case we don't even use predisposition, most of the time they could come down with what we call neurodevelopmental disorders. That's child
for babies.
Yes, but it does not manifest right from like a baby, because as a baby you don't expect anything from baby. The baby is just there. But that's where the word comes, neurodevelopmental. As they are developing, then you notice the signs. So that is where the autism comes in, hyperactivity disorders, and the cerebral palsy comes in.
What are the signs that could tell you this person has a mental disorder? Because when you go on social media and you see there are some issues there, people will just say, protect your mental health, and everybody's like, this mental health, person that is even saying that, are you sure you even know what it means? So what are the signs to look out for? Because even on the cyberspace, you just see that people write comments and you could just fix it. Like, is there anything wrong with you? You don't know me, I don't know you. But you see the response is like very harsh and all of that. So what are the signs to look out for?
So this question now, so everybody can relate to it, is we can break it down into like smaller forms. Like the first thing we look at is the appearance. On the appearance, you want to look at how the person is. Is he properly dressed up? Is it appropriately dressed? Is he calm? Is it that he's restless? Is it that he looks dirty? Is he aggressive? Is he relating properly? Then after that, we look onto the speech. talking coherently. You made mention of the social media now. Somebody commented, and then you were wondering if what the person says is still coherent, meaning that you still understand what the person is saying, and the person is still literally still stable
on
to
right
a particular extent. It could be under some kind of pressure, and it could be a bit aggressive, really. But that in itself will not say that this person has some kind of mental health issue. Then we'll go on to look at how the person is feeling. For instance, going to the depression part, when you feel very low mood, you're not happy. The difference between being sad and having depression, let me just bring it up at this point, is being sad is somebody's not feeling, you don't feel happy. However, if you see something that usually inspires you or makes you happy, then you get over it. However, in depression, it has gone past that. No matter what the thing is, if you had a favorite thing or this interest before, no matter what you do, you're just down there, low down there, and all that. In that instance, I can quickly talk about the pathophysiology of what mental health disorders is really about, because of our social, cultural perspective and the stigma attached to it, and then what we see sometimes on these local movies, although I think they are getting better at it now, they just create this scenario,
telling the stories,
and they just show the thing go and click on that person. But science, I'm still a Nigerian and I won't still deny my roots, but I'll just talk what science has done now. So science has shown beyond doubt that there is some kind of chemical disbalance in the brain.
Okay.
Yes. So let me create a small scenario. Okay, so talking normally is equals to chemical A is 20%, chemical B is 30%. That is equal to normal speech.
Okay.
Talking abnormally, talking out of context,
okay,
is chemical A has reduced to 10%, chemical B is now 50%. So if they come together, then they transmit an incoherent speech.
You know what? Let's go on a short break. When we return, talking about the management of mental health disorders.
Okay.
We'll go on the short break now. Health Watch continues in a moment. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, the program is still Health Watch, and our focus today is on mental health. My guest is in the studio, Dr. Kehinde Shodimu. Before we went on the break, you were trying to explain the chemical imbalance according to science, and I had a feeling that you were going to talk about the management also. So I was going to ask, for the calculation you just gave, does it cut across all ages? Is it the same thing for a child? Is it the same thing for an adult?
Okay, we shouldn't get it wrong at that point.
Okay.
Like I was trying to explain some childhood mental issues, particularly for children now, is the neurodevelopmental disorders.
Okay.
For the neurodevelopmental disorders, most of the time is due to a trauma to the particular part of the brain. Contrary to the adults now.
Okay.
For instance, somebody coming down with depression did not hit his head. That was why he had the depression.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you...
On the management, I was still talking. So the management now, you take an history, then after the history, you'll be online with some things. Then of course, we have to do some investigations. Investigations now, we do that because physical disorders too causes mental issues.
Okay.
So you want to know that the person is okay physically. Explaining that is...
Can you give an example of this physical disorders?
Yes, that was what I was getting to. For instance, having a liver disease, a chronic liver disease. There's something we call liver encephalopathy, which the liver has been damaged to a particular state that it has stopped doing its function. Okay. So there's a release of toxins into the system. So to make people understand what I'm trying to say is there's a chemical assault. Now, so relating to renal disorders too, the chronic renal state, when the kidneys are not doing what they are supposed to do, so it gives this state, and then the person can actually start behaving abnormally. Okay, so after those investigations to check if there's nothing wrong in that aspect, of course we have our psychological investigations too to check, and then it comes to the management in quotes now. So in psychiatry is not about drug focus. We are not drug only oriented. We identified from what I've said before, etiological factors, that there's no known cause, but this can cause it, that can cause it. While you're talking to the your client now, you have to identify what triggered this. In some instances, you could get a trigger. For instance, loss of employment, recent loss of a loved one, domestic violence. And then another thing in our write-up, we also dig up, there's a big space for childhood history.
Okay.
So we want to find out if this person was not exposed to some kind of thing predisposing him up to now. But you can ask me that, okay, if something happened in childhood and then you get it now, what will you use that for? There is a lot. Like I talked about, children usually hold on to negative things. So you want to have a walk with this person. Change his distortions. We call it like cognitive distortions.
Like
meaning that
them.
changing his beliefs or her beliefs that contrary to what you thought at that time, this is what it is now, this is who you are, take yourself as this and then move forward. Then also there's a space for medication and counseling and then the social management.
Wow. So with what is happening right now, how do we protect our mental health? Why I said that is that a lot of people are tensed. You're just walking on the street and somebody's like, hey, you stepped on me. And next thing it turns to a big fight and everybody's like, I beg, I have to use that word. Please, things are hard. Everybody's walked up. So how do we protect our mental health? In just 1 minute.
Okay, beautiful. I like that. We shouldn't leave here without saying that. So to protect our mental health, the first thing is self-love / self-care. Okay. So love yourself. If you don't love yourself or think that you have some worth, then you cannot love the other individual. So loving yourself now, it will help to improve your self-esteem. Self-esteem issues is one of the foundation things that happen that make somebody have a mental issue later on in life. Another very important thing is having a confidant. A confidant just means somebody you can talk to. I tell my patients, I say, you tell them, in fact, when you get home now, call this person, or if it's your husband you want to take, tell him that from now I'm going to be calling you I'm going to telling you or talking to you every day. And when I talk, you don't need to give me any answer. I just want to offload and put it on to you. And another part we can do is modifying our lifestyle, dropping bad habits or ill habits, smoking, drinking, then exercise. Sometimes most of us, we don't know what we have in exercise. When you exercise, there's a rush of good hormones that can energize you, that can temporarily put you out of what you are feeling. Then looking at the child thing too, like I said, that's one of the biggest things to prevent our children or the children going on to adult and then having more mental health issues. Is let's create time for our children. But like I say, if you cannot create the time, then explain to the child why you cannot create it.
Wow, thank you so much for coming on Health Watch. We've been speaking with Dr. Kehinde Shodimu, a consultant psychiatrist. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In fact, there's a lot of take home today, and the most important is self-love. You need to love yourself and do what makes you happy as long as it doesn't hurt the other person. All right, moving on. The next feature is on stress management. We'll be right back. Stay with us. On a daily basis, as humans, we have lots of activities that keep us busy and can get one stressed, if not properly managed. Although stress can come in diverse ways and it is interpreted differently. Stress is any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain.
Stress can actually affect the body health-wise, can affect the mental state. And in extreme case, it could actually lead to suicide. See some people taking their lives because they can't manage stress. Because stress is an inability to cope with mental or emotional pressure. And every day, of course, in Lagos, every day you see a lot of stress. You encounter stress, even not in your workplace, in your house.
Stress cannot be hidden. Everyone experiences stress from time to time.
One of the signs of stress or physical signs of stress is high blood pressure, headache, which can lead to high blood pressure. So if this is not properly managed, it could actually lead to cardiac problem. You have cardiac arrest, can actually have kidney problem like renal failure. And such case is difficult to manage. And sometimes, again, you can actually have arthritis as extreme cases of stress, where you have the arthritis of the knee, osteoarthritis, you have the rheumatoid arthritis of the hands, then the ones of the spinal cord called spondylolysis.
Stress comes in different degrees. However, it can be managed with some healthy tips, such as regular exercise, seeking support from loved ones, relaxation techniques, and better ways of coping with the situation at hand. And that's the much we can take on this week's edition of Health Watch. Remember, the health-conscious people live longer. If you have any questions, inquiries, please send it to kibenkem@gmail.com or NTA Lagos Channel 10 at gmail.com, or send a text only to 070-60865487. My name is Nkem or Kibe. See you next week, same time, same station. Bye.